Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Beyond Second Cognition. I'm Endall Beall. The topic of this discussion is some words about ground crew. I'm going to be as gentle with this presentation as I can, but there are still going to be some things that are probably going to hit some of you wrong, and it doesn't matter how I flower it up, it's still going to hit you wrong. When George Green put out the New Paradigm trilogy, the concept of ground crew was introduced in those books. It didn't take long for the New Age crowd to latch onto that label and start inflating their egos with ground crew ideas. I'm going to post a couple of video links for you to look at to see the ludicrousness of the malarkey. David Icke even went so far as to start ground crew radio, which is utter nonsense. Just another way to lure people away from the PSOYCA teachings and the New Paradigm books into the theosophical cesspool. We live in a world where people live on labels. They define themselves by the labels they use. I'm a congressman, I'm a senator, I'm a supervisor, I'm a ground crew member, I'm a Reiki healer. See, people wrap their identities up with labels, descriptions, just as Don Juan taught. And sadly, with the concepts of ground crew introduced in the New Paradigm trilogy, it just became another label, another fucking buzzword for egos hungry to identify themselves as something special. Because of this New Age co-opting, we altered it to PSOYCA crew, just to separate it from the fucking nonsense once it was hijacked by the nonsense makers and by the ego wannabes. You're not ground crew if you're getting a bunch of your New Age buddies together, sitting around the campfire perhaps, and drinking a glass of wine and patting yourselves on the back about how special you are because you have given yourself a new group label. This isn't about labels. This isn't about descriptions. This is about doing work. Now, I put out the video on single point focus. And I know that every one of you is working on your personal house cleaning, and I don't disparage those efforts. But I want you to realize something. Just because I said it is an individual path, it does not mean that the individual path is only to be pursued exclusively without any other expansive ideas on it. And here's what I've seen based on what I just showed you about ground crew and labels. Ego habits latch onto labels. Well, I'm doing my work, but I'm PSOYCA crew. Okay. Where's your crew? If you're PSOYCA crew, where's your crew? Or are you just a crew of one? Y'all need to consider that, because you're not part of a crew if you're self-focused and self-indulged to the exclusion of anything else. It's very easy to become self-absorbed when you're doing your personal work. And one failing that people make is that they have to do this before they can do that. This whole linear thinking, well, I'll step into my crew responsibilities when I get my house cleaning done. Well, some people make a career out of house cleaning. They don't do it full time, or they don't do it avidly enough, but they're always house cleaning. So if you're waiting for stepping into potential crew responsibilities as PSOYCA crew for your house cleaning to be done, you're probably not going to get there, because this thing is moving on energetically while some are still sitting there doing their house cleaning. And as the energetic circumstances change and you don't rise to the challenge of these changes, you'll still be house cleaning when others are moving on, stepping up way ahead of you. And that's kind of the situation we face right now. Some of you may be feeling an inner push to do something, but you don't know what. Others, they don't feel the inner push. They're just going through the motions. And yeah, they're gaining some advantage by taking on some of their ego habits and getting rid of some of them. But I got news for you, folks. Those habits can take years to erode and unearth and rid yourselves of. So if you're just going to concentrate on house cleaning, that's where you're going to be. But while you're doing that and you're self-focused on your individual path, you're not multitasking. You're not being a generalist. You're not expanding beyond your self-focus. And this is the problem when you tell people something. They latch onto it, they get that single point focus, and they stay right the fuck where they are, like a dog with a steak sitting next to him but chewing on a bone and won't let go of the bone to eat the fucking steak. This is what PSOYCA crew is. You can either continue to chew on that bone and miss the steak, or you can put on more than one hat and step into crew work. I've stated before, crew here are generalists. We're not specialists. Yet the New Age philosophies have made everybody focus on single point focus. What's my purpose? What's my role? What's my traits? You don't realize that traits are only a tool. They're not what defines you. What you can or cannot do with your traits is not going to define a purpose. If you're PSOYCA crew, you have multiple purposes. You're going to wear many hats depending on what any given situation requires. But you're not going to wear multiple hats. You're not going to learn to take on multiple responsibilities if you're only wearing one hat, only looking at one point. And this is what disgusts me about how the New Age cheapened what ground crew is, how people become self-absorbed, particularly with their egos in place, and who aren't even doing the work most people here are doing. And then bragging about being ground crew. Yeah, in my eye. You're not part of any crew if you're only focused on you. There is no I in team. You're not part of a team. You're not part of any crew, regardless of how much you may imagine you are. Are you crew in potential? Sure. But if you're waiting for the crew messenger to come to your door with an RSVP invitation and says, here, you're invited to the cosmos, you're going to be waiting forever, because nobody's going to give a goddamn thing to you. In this process, everything you get, you got to take. You got to earn, you got to move towards, and you got to push towards. And if you're sitting there like all these New Age ideologies profess, oh, we're coming to save you, we'll click on the Galactic Switch, and on this date and at this time, pay attention to the David Icke video link I'm posting. This was a forecast he made January 18th of this year. And he had a date and a time about when this magical switch was going to be clicked. And guess what, folks? Here we're moving towards July, and that switch never clicked. But I guarantee you there's dumb shit New Age egos waiting for the next prophecy to flip some switch for them for the UPS RSVP invitation at their front fucking door. And while they're waiting, they're not getting a goddamn thing done. They're buying wishful thinking. But in like kind, being self-absorbed in your house cleaning process to the exclusion of anything else leaves you single point focused, and you're not learning much to advance outside of that. You may be a team of one, but that ain't crew. So y'all think about this. Look at the fallacy of what happens with egos yucking them up about their titles and their descriptions and how full of themselves they are, thinking they're something yet they are not. You want to be crew, you're going to have to be crew. It means you're going to have to work with others in some capacity. And if you don't want to work with others, then you're not fucking crew. Sorry, that's pragmatism. And this brings me to another point I want to cover. If you look at the podcasts that we have posted here, and this was true also on the YouTube channel when we had the stuff up there. people glom on to the voodoo shit. Everybody wants the voodoo shit. And I put out videos on pragmatism, pragmatic situations, and they go without comment. And what this illustrates is that everybody wants the voodoo. They don't want the pragmatism. But here's the kicker, folks. You're not going to get access to be even able to remotely handle the voodoo until you have a solid pragmatic foundation to face it. Regardless of all the information that we have supplied, everything that we have presented so far is elementary school. And I mean low-grade elementary school, where this stuff comes in. And if you don't have the pragmatic foundation to face the cosmos, when you get it shown to you, you're going to crumble. You got to have balls, you got to have guts, you got to have stamina, and you got to be goddamn pragmatic to face this shit and do this shit. So ignoring the pragmatism and jumping straight to the voodoo menu, you're cutting yourselves off. Because pragmatism is one of the keys to opening the door to the cosmos. You better get some pragmatic foundation underneath you. There's nothing that we've presented suggestion-wise in development so far as expanding your research capabilities into different areas, because you don't want to face the cosmos with a one-view perspective. I'm an expert in ice cream dipping. Okay, how far is that going to take you in the cosmos? I don't care what your expertise is. If you don't become a generalist, if you don't expand your knowledge base to have a rounded approach to things, you're going to be single point focused. You're going to be a one-dimensional individual. Of course, that's exactly where the hive wanted us, and that's exactly how we've all been indoctrinated to think and react. Unidimensional, one purpose, one goal, one focus. You got to break that shit. Because if you can't break that habit, you're going to be sitting right there in one place, spinning your wheels and not going anywhere. And I'm sorry if this hurts to have it pointed out. But this isn't a game about nice. This isn't a game about feeling good. This is a game of cosmic pragmatism, and you, by God, better develop some, because you ain't going anywhere without it. Without that pragmatic foundation, you open the door to see what's out there, you're going to run the other way. And all the voodoo wishful thinking and pie in the sky and how much you think you're ready for this, you're not. This is only the introductory shit, folks. This is only the preliminary shit. I can't even put out the real shit because you don't have the tools yet to comprehend it. And that's not besmirching your intelligence. You know, because I know all of you people are real smart or you wouldn't be here anyway. But to conceptualize an idea based on science fiction movies and based on New Ageism and based on whatever other fanciful notions you may have, if you're a gamer and played Spaceballs on some video game, you don't have a clue. I'm trying to help you get a clue. And that's why I'm putting out this additional information in this video, because you better, by God, focus on the pragmatism. You better focus on rounding your knowledge base. It's better to know a little about a lot of things than it is to know a lot about one thing and stay single point focused. Broaden your functional database, because the broader you know, the more equipped you are going to be able to be when you have to face the cosmos. Otherwise, you're going to be an ignorant, one-pointed, one-sided, unidimensional